Hey, we're here for the second episode of the Comic Book Crowd. How you all doing out there? All five of you or six, whatever's out there. Good to see you guys. So, oh my goodness.
Uh-oh, I'm hearing myself. Somebody's talking.
Did you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
I
is
also
that
hear
okay?
something else.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got a reverb on it.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so we're here today. We got Wayne from
Hello.
Squirrel Madness Comics, and we have the Blasters. How you all doing?
Hey.
We have Alan from Climbing Comics.
Hello,
Alan.
hello.
And we have the one, the only, Matt Woods.
Matt Woods.
From
Oh.
Matt Woods Comics.
Matt Woods.
How you
Oh,
doing?
got it right.
See what the Blasters have done to us is turn us all into alcoholics or Coke drinkers or whatever else.
Super
So-
excited to have the second show on here today, Joe.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all month for this.
That's right. It's been a month. Can you believe it?
It's been
That means I'm
crazy.
a month older, though, Matt, which I don't really like, you know? So, did everybody have a great Thanksgiving? That's what I want to know, except for Wayne, who had Thanksgiving last month.
We had a great time.
It was a really great time.
Good.
Really great. Lots of food.
That's a food. Yeah, no, but Alan, you're so thin. I used to be like that a long time ago. So we got a few people in here. Let's see. So Doug, we got Doug Bratton is here. Let's see. How does this work here? Yeah, there's Doug. He's saying hello to Climbing Comics, which is
Hello.
good. Hey, DC Patrol. How's it going? Thanks a lot. And one of my favorite guys around, pretty fly for a Filipino guy. Woo! Matt Woods to you, buddy. So cool. So cool. And we have
I
Brian.
love that game.
Right? A pretty fly. I got you, pretty fly. Okay, where's this? Oh, I see. He keeps on shooting up on me here. So, Brian, how you doing? Can't wait for your show on December 4th, Brian.
Yeah, it's around the
Right.
corner.
Yeah.
Comic Book Community Awards, December 4th. We all got to make sure we make that. It's terrific.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I can't wait. And Brian knows why I can't wait, but that's another story. Okay. Anyway, who else we have here? We have, let's see. Well, Boar.
Hey, old boar.
Good to
Cool.
see you.
Some really great people in the chat tonight.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
We got somebody else here. Las Cruces from New Mexico.
Hey.
¿Cómo estás, mi amigo? All right. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else here? I think I might have everybody. What does Reggie say? Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. I think we got
Brian from
everybody here.
LCS Comics is in here.
Who else?
Brian, LCS Comics.
Right. We mentioned him, right? Okay.
I was doing too much Matt Woodsing.
Yeah, I know.
Missed it.
All right. So, as you know, from last time, we had a couple of topics we talked about. And this time around, we had a topic involving the price of comics or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Alan, you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, definitely. So me and everyone here, I know, and everyone in the chat are all comic book collectors, right? So we've all kind of seen the ups and downs over the couple of years. I've only been back into comics for the last 3 years, so I've just seen kind of the minor ups and downs. But, you know, in the 90s, there was definitely that kind of big bubble of comic book collecting. But what we've seen over the pandemic was that there was a skyrocketing of prices of books as well. So one of the things we wanted to discuss today is there a correction happening right now? And if so, does that mean that, you know, prices will keep going down, or if this is just a lull and we're going to shoot straight back up? Because like what we mentioned was like, you know, with all of the, you know, extra material out there, like the movies, the TV shows and whatnot, what is driving the prices? Because what I've seen is one thing, and we wanted to talk about each of our different experiences in, you know, the market and how we see it, because I think it's kind of hard to gather all that data.
You know, Alan, being who I am, to the consternation sometimes of my wife and other people, I start thinking about when you say the word correction, right? What does that mean? I mean, because things go up and down. So what's a correction? A correction in the stock market, generally they say, is, at least like a 10% or something like that. There's a correction involved. So how do we look at comic books? And when we talk about some of our experiences, I think that's going to make a difference, I think.
Definitely. Because I think I have my own definition of what I see as correction, but they definitely might be different than the next person, especially in comic books.
But you're not going to share that with us, right? Just to see.
No. So for me, I started 3 years ago recollecting comics, right? So my correction is, are the prices trending back to those prices for at least me, like 2 to 3 years ago? And I know corrections aren't crashes or about like that 10%, but for me, I know there's a lot of nuance, but my final question is this book now attainable, or is it still out of reach? If it's attainable, to me, that's a correction that benefits me. So I'm all for that. So that's kind of my definition. I compare it to about 2 to 3 years ago.
Anyone else?
I can chime in.
Okay.
I'm a little. I've been in the game. I came on board when you did, Alan, but then I came back in the game earlier, right? So I would say, if we are saying, is there going to be a correction? I look at my PC that has expanded massively, right? So I have benefited from everything that has happened. So if a correction means we're going to pull back just a little bit, absolutely, that's probably going to happen. And it's not a negative in my mind, because everything is healthy. There's a lot of people going to, yes, the content out there is fantastic. And with the technology, I mean, Stephanie is on Instagram and she has an account and she's communicating and entering the hobby. And so are people, my coworkers at work. And I think that the things that were happening in the 90s are not what's happening right now. So I feel really good about it. And a little bit of a pullback would not be a bad thing.
Do you see that as a buying opportunity? Because that's what you do in stocks. If you see a pullback and you see something that's quality, you maybe can afford something now that you couldn't afford before.
Yeah, the stock market, real estate. Okay, a lot of people in our their periods in our life right now are looking at real estate, and the same thing's happening there. And I think you can equate it to the hobby. I really do. The things that you already own, I say love what you own, because you look at it and it's like the things that you gravitated to are being pulled up just like everything else. And the thing that you want now is maybe the hobby needs to help out a little bit. And when there's a pullback, it's a buying opportunity. It doesn't mean the sky is falling necessarily.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I know you hear from Matt and Wayne too, but I wasn't around in the 90s, so I don't really know what happened. I mean, I know people.
Oh, no, you were around. You weren't around comic books.
All right, Matt. Okay. I wasn't around in comic books in the 90s, so I don't know really what happened there. I mean, I heard about the thing like, Death of Superman 75 and people buying that stuff and some speculation that's there. To me, it's always speculation is always been a problem for me. And I know it's like collect what you like. Speculation is fine. Anything you want to do is okay. But anytime there's speculation, like the real estate market in 2008, the crash, people start having expectations. To me, I think when I take a look at that, there were a lot of things that happened. We took, Alan, you spoke about during the pandemic. We found out there were a lot of people using like apps like Robin, I think, and other people that started getting into the stock market, at that time, because whether it was money they got from the government or they were just home and had more time on their hands, they started to do speculation on that, which caused some issues with some companies. You have other situations too where maybe people were looking at comic books as well. They got to know it because they watched great channels like Squirrel Madness or Madam and Master Blaster or Climbing Comics or Matt Woods Comics, and they say, oh, look at this. And now we talk about price all the time, right? Something like CGC and its effect on everything. You could go there and say, oh, the fair market value of this is X, and it's gone up 1,000% in the last 2 years. That's pretty enticing to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and thinks they could just buy stuff and it's going to go up 1,000%, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I mean, I was just talking to somebody, I had some family over, and we went downstairs to show them the comics. And so I pulled out my Blue Marvel, and Tales of Blue Marvel, and I pulled it out, and I remember I did a whole video on this, and I went through like, why do people like this comic? Why does it keep its value? And should I buy it? And the end result was, yes, I should buy it, and actually had bought it, and I showed it off. It was a 9.6, and 10 or 11 months ago, it was worth, I bought it for $450, but the FMV on Go Collect, I think, was $550. So I thought I got a great deal on it, right? And when I looked at it maybe a week or two ago, whatever, it was over $1,000. So I'm saying to myself, okay. So if I relay that to my nephew, and he's going, wow, look at that. So if he might go out and say, I should look for something like this because I'm going to make like all this money in like a year on this, and I could sell it later on. Well, does that help the hobby? Does that pressure the prices? Does that make it so, Reggie had to spend how much money on his Hulk #1? I mean, I don't know. I'll just open it up to anybody else that wants to comment on that.
See, I'm gonna completely like flip the cart right here. I have a completely different look on this. Now, I'm gonna say this. I am not a trained economist. I have not gone to school for it, but I play one on TV. So here's my look at it. I equate this to the 1970s with hyperinflation. And you got to look at comic book collecting as it relates to the greater economy. Guys, we're hitting a period where the price of goods are going up relatively quickly. I mean, a 16-year-old kid can get a job paying $15 an hour right now. And even 5 years ago, that is double what kids were getting paid, for minimum wage jobs. Well, $15 isn't minimum wage, but that's an entry-level position right now. And if we're talking about salaries starting to increase, and we are doing government handouts, I don't want to say handouts, but we're doing, COVID relief packages from the government where we are getting giant checks going to people like we've never seen before. And I hear that Washington's thinking about doing another one in the springtime. Well, that's really driven up the prices in the last few years, but I think we're in a little low right now. But I don't think that we're at the end of it. I think we're going to just keep on continuing to go up with cooler periods. I just think we're in a cool period right now.
So you're saying the momentum, and there's a theory also in terms of investing on momentum, and sometimes there's a momentum. So you do have the lull, like you mentioned, so it's not always going to be like this. It's going to go, but when you take a look at technical analyses, there's generally an upper and a lower end. And when you take a look at it, as long as it stays within that realm, you're on that upward momentum, that upward strategy to going up. That sounds like what you're talking about here.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen to it. And because I say this, I'm going to be completely wrong. But listen, MCU, DECU, they have put this stuff, comic books into the mass culture. Now, not everybody that's coming into collection or comic book collecting is necessarily a comic book reader, but they like the characters. They watched, Iron Man, and they want that Tales to Suspense number 39 because, hey, they like Iron Man whenever they were a kid. That was a movie that came out, and it was spectacular, great effects. And now they want that. And those people are going to still, people that aren't your traditional comic book readers are still wanting to get those books, even though they're not like us. So there's still new money going to come into it. And I'm telling you, being a comic book collector is a semi-cool hobby now, where 30 years ago, we might not have been considered cool kids on the block at the moment.
And I'm still in the basement, so I don't know about that.
Well, I was thinking a little bit about what Alan started out with, which is I came in around again the same time 3 years ago. And I'll tell you, the books that I was looking at buying 3 years ago, and the books, if I look at those same books now, they're nowhere dropping close to the price they were 3 years ago. And yeah, I think there's kind of an up and down. I think there's a general upward trajectory. There is drop in books that are not keys or that are minor keys or whatever, but certain books related to certain properties are increasing like crazy. And I don't know if it's there's been talk about rich people, speculators coming in just like they do in the sports card market or other areas where instead of investing in art, for instance, they're investing in something that's a collectible and seeing that as kind of the next blue chip thing that if you buy it cheap, hold on to it, it will amass in value in 10, 20 years, just like a piece of art. And an example I want to use is a recent auction that I saw about a month ago of an Amazing Fantasy 15 I saw. I don't know who bought it, but it was crazy. It was a 3.0. It was a purple label. It was trimmed. It's never going to be anything but a purple label, restored. And somebody bought it for $150,000.
A 3.0.
Plus buyer's premium, brought it just slightly under $200,000. So I don't know if this person buying it didn't realize what a purple label was versus a blue label, or just said, I've got to own this book because it was worth $3.6 million at a heritage auction a few months ago. And now so the percentage of the amount of a 9.6 versus a 3.0, this is a reasonable amount of price to pay for this book. I don't really know, but I think that you won't see prices drop, I think, significantly, like back to the levels they were 3 years, 5 years ago. It may drop a bit, and then they'll spike a bit, and then they'll drop a bit, and they'll spike a bit. And it'll be based on whatever property's hot at the time, whatever the current news cycle is saying is important. Like they're talking about, for instance, I think there's talk HBO Max might do a Dead Man series. So watch Dead Man go up until it either launches or doesn't happen, and then it'll drop a little bit. But whatever gain it had, it'll keep some of that gain. It'll stay up there because now that property is in the public consciousness. And it's something that people will go, oh, now I've heard of it. And it has that sort of recognition value, which will naturally increase what it's worth, I think.
I saw a note in there from a Pretty Fly in the comments about how he feels his dollar goes further in the modern book. Well, there's some truth to that. You can pay a lot of money, $150,000 for a 3.0 blue label. AF15 is crazy, but there's a handful of books that I paid $2.99 for that I stored away 10 years ago, and all of a sudden I see it popping up on IG, and it's $1,000 book, and that just blows my mind that is something that can actually happen to a modern comic book.
Listen, Matt, you know me, right? And the comics that my mom let me keep. I've paid 10 and 12 cents for those. I paid 5 cents for some of them. A couple of them for my friends, which I haven't even shown yet, I paid 2 cents a piece for. So even if they're 2.0s or whatever else, I'm making a ton of money on those. Now, I never thought they would be worth anything, but I agree with that aspect of it. If you think you're going to be on here, even if you decide in 5 years you're not going to collect, just hold on to them. As long as you have your
I'll give you $1 each.
Around. What's that?
I'll give you $1 each. It's a good return on investment.
That's pretty good.
After that, they say, "Oh, I'll double your money," is what I hear all the time. But you're right. I mean, I think some of that. I mean, I've spoken about what can I do to maximize what a lot of people have spoken about to maximize the collection. If my son is going to take a look at them and so forth, which one should I send to CGC, bring the money up? But I was telling him, I said, I think I'm going to sell a bunch of them. I'm looking to see the best way of doing it, and that type of thing, so I can get rid of a lot of them because I have like close to 10,000 now. Wow. And a lot of them I'm saying, well, what am I going to do with this book, right? And he had a very interesting response to that because I thought he would say, great, it'll be less for me to, manage and all that. He said, don't do it. I said, what? And he said exactly, and he's not a comic book guy, he's an engineer, I guess, he's a smart guy. And he said, Dad, my plan is to hold on to these, and in 10, 20 years, they all might be worth something. So he's got a point there. My wife doesn't like that point, but he's got a point.
Okay. I couldn't disagree more with Pretty Fly, which makes me feel really uncomfortable because I'm his biggest fan. So I would say there are comic books from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that no one's paying attention to, that have age equity, that you can get for a couple bucks here and there, that are just screaming, like Batman. Thanks for holding up Batman, frankly. 80s, 90s Batman.
Copper Age Batman, even.
I talked to Brandon about the 90s newsstand, if it's a clean book. I'm just come up like crazy because it's just like, that's where there is so much opportunity. There is so much opportunity with comic books that have 30, 40 years time equity already built in, that are going to quadruple, 10 times in value, that it's going to happen. That it's just out there. It's a great time to be in the hobby. Everyone is going after the mega keys.
Yeah.
And the minor keys where the value is. Go get the first Falcon.
Right.
You can afford it. It's going to triple in value.
Yeah.
It's the minor keys. Just don't get distracted on the monster ridiculous books, because that's where all these guys who don't, like you said, who's this person who bought this trimmed purple label? It's a person that doesn't understand the hobby, and then they're not looking at all the other amazing books that are sitting right there, right in front of our face.
Yeah, and Rob knows this because if you watch his channel, he's been picking up a lot of like Silver Age books, even a few Golden Age books, but Silver Age books that I keep telling him stop buying them because they're some of the same ones I'm looking to get to fill up routines. But things like Adam Strange, Mystery in Space, you know, looking at some of these covers, they're timeless, you know. And if you buy them for a certain amount, so even if you buy it for like $40 and ends up being $80 or $100, you're making a nice return on that.
Yeah.
So I think there's value there with respect to that as well.
I think, you know, it sounds kind of obvious, but I think there's a certain value in, you know, not to paraphrase Master Blaster, but buy what you love, right? Like buy what you love, complete collections that are meaningful to you. At the end of the day, that will bring you more joy. And if you have good taste in comics, those books will ultimately be worth a lot too. So I mean, I think it's going to be kind of like you'll kind of get a benefit in both ways.
Yeah, I think there's value. Again, going back to Reggie, you know, and with Hulk #1, I think there's value when you're doing something in terms of collecting, to collect what you love. Take a look at it. Like what I've done this year, one of my goals that I came up with was to collect the first DC run of Blue Beetle, and I just finished that. I love Booster Gold. I think he's underappreciated, you know, and I wanted to get his run, and I got that done. And another one that was Captain Carrot, you know, from Roy Thomas. And it's like each one of them is like 20, 25 issues, something like that. And I got that one done. So maybe nobody cares about Captain Carrot, but I do, you know, and I got it. And Blue Beetle I really like, and I got that. Booster Gold I really like. And I think other than that, I think it's great to maybe have one big goal. You know, like there's one big thing you want to accomplish, you know, but the other stuff is stuff, hey, I really like this. Nobody cares about them but me, but I'm really happy that I got them now.
Yeah.
See, you're talking about the best part of the hobby. Now, the topic is about price, and are we in a price correction? But honestly, like, the best part of this hobby isn't necessarily like worrying about the X's and O's and the dollars and cents. It's collecting what you like. Because I'll be honest with you, Mr. Gold, I've read a couple issues. It's not my thing. But, you know, if that's what you like and you want it, that's an easy to, you know, target goal to have. That's the fun part of the hobby. And so my hat's off to you for not necessarily being only concerned about the price and the value of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think us and I think all the people in the chat are really well advantaged in terms of we know like characters, we know the storylines because we read the books. We kind of have immersed ourselves into the hobby. So we're not going to go out and buy a 3.0 purple label like AF15. But, you know, I think a lot of people because I put myself in this position, outside looking in at the comic book hobby, right? And that was very much so black and white. But being inside of the hobby, everything's gray, right? So, you know, they always say rising tide raises all ships, all the big books, all the little books,
Right.
all of those kind of rise. But if you notice, all of the people who are outside of the hobby are going for the main characters, right? So then those will probably see a higher spike and not too much of a fall. But like the lesser known characters, like you said, Steve, those people will overlook. Those could drop and then you could buy those. So we kind of are in an advantage because we see all those nuance within the hobby.
Yeah, but you see, Steve spoke about a Marvel character. I spoke about DC characters. So Steve already is making more money than I am.
I said I Batman.
You did say Batman. That's true. That's true.
Well, one of the things that in talking about prices and kind of where things stand right now versus where they were a year or two ago, one of the things that I do, as you guys probably know, is I do a lot of like general auctions that aren't maybe comic specific but have comic books in them. And I will tell you, I see and watch and monitor, you know, maybe a couple dozen a week, and the prices are not dropping. People are paying crazy prices at so I'm taking eBay out of the equation, Heritage out of the equation, Comic Link. I'm talking like some Arkansas, you know, consignment auction house that happens to have some older Spider-Man. People are paying through the nose right now at all the general auctions. All the collectors, all the speculators are coming in and bidding these up well past what I think the fair market value is. You can see obvious issues and damage with the comics. They're almost like they're ignoring it. It's crazy. So there is, outside of what people kind of report on, say like Comic Tom and whoever may report on like sales prices, the areas they're not looking at, those prices are nuts, absolutely nuts. And a lot of stuff's untouchable. It's very rare you'll find a good deal or anything that's even worth like adding something to your collection. If you're looking for a kind of a rarer book or more expensive book or a key book, it's still untouchable in my opinion. So,
well, I think some of it is just the way, I mean, I don't know, someone said earlier, I don't know if it was Pretty Fly, whoever it was, that, you know, YouTube is causing some increase in dollar figure. And I think some of it has to do with some of the shows that you see. I mean,
yeah,
these crazy YouTubers. Oh,
yeah, I know, right? Especially that Matt Woods comic guy, you know. But when you take a look at it, most people, and I do the same thing, most people will talk about, well, here's what the value of a book is. Now, I don't do it too often, but I do it a lot with some of the comics that I got sometimes, you know, for like 10 or 12 cents, because people kind of say, wow, or whatever else. But I mean, you look at Comic Tom or something and they say, yeah, I got this. And like, here's the top 10. And look, here's the top 10 values. And, you know, how, you know, these are what the values are now. And it's shot up 2,300% and all that type of stuff like that. And I guess it brings in people, you know, to see it. So they get more views that way. But I wonder how it affects people. We talk about people who don't really know a lot. These might be people that know a lot, but they still get caught up in the euphoria of it, especially if they show the book, you know?
I know enough and I still get caught up.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything, it could be very dangerous. I would like to say, in my little arena that I operate in, I'm hunting Spider-Man 1 through 100 signed by Stan Lee. The prices they're a little bit concerning. The inventory, there isn't any. It has like gone away, which is a really good sign for the hobby. Not a good sign for Master Blaster and his goal, but I'm not concerned. And in the original art world where I dabble, the same deal. The prices are just going up. And so I think we're in a good place based on my loosey-goosey, the things that I'm into. I think we're okay.
Wayne?
it's good if you own, bad if you want to buy. Really, I mean, that's what it
Good
comes down
point.
to.
Well, let me ask you a question, though, about this. when I first got back into comics, I would go to the Midtown Comics, near my office. There's two of them that were nearby, and I would go there. And my wife said, "What are you doing? You're going back and you're there with all these kids." I said, "No." I said, "There's no kids unless the kid is there with his mother or his father." I said, "It's all people generally look like they're 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever." I said, "I admit I might be the oldest guy in there. I don't know." I said, "But they're all older people because that's where the money is." And a lot of what I've read and I've seen is that some of the push up in prices might be some of you guys' fault. And let me explain that.
Yeah.
What they said is these people that collected, let's say in the 90s, I don't know if that's you, but I think kind of might be. People that collected in their 90s didn't have cash or money to buy all these things. But now that they have cash or money, they're going back and they're saying, "I want to buy all the stuff I couldn't buy when I was a kid."
Mhm.
And I wonder how much of that is really true. That's part one.
Mm-hmm.
Part two is I'm wondering about the crash, because that's what we're talking about. Are we like at a precipice point? Maybe not. And I agree that maybe this is not the case. But how many kids? Like I was a kid, I was like 10, 11 years. I mean, up until high school and even past that, I was buying comic books. But then I stopped before I came back. But how many kids are buying now? And that's kind of the foundation, isn't it? The basis of who's going to be looking to buy things later on because they love it. Now I understand we have movies now, so that might play a part in it. But I'm just wondering, where are the kids that are buying comics? Like I used to go with $1 and be able to buy 10 comic books when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Well, I think comics, to be honest, are cost prohibitive. Generally speaking. I mean, I stopped buying like 91 maybe. Comics, I think, were $1.25. And I was getting annoyed. The prices had gone up, and that all of a sudden you had a crossover with 2 or 3 like Spider-Man titles, and you had to read all 3 to get a story kind of completed to read the entire story. And I'm like, screw this! I'm not going to do this anymore. They're price gouging me.
Yeah,
$4.99, whatever, $3.99, $4.99 for new books. I mean, how many books are new kids going to be able to buy, or the parents are going to be able to afford? Most families. That's expensive. So it's hard to get new people into the hobby at those prices.
So then who's going to come in? Just people who are going to be speculating it, or or just older people are going to keep speculating on things that they like or want? I mean, to me, it seems that at some point in time, you might have the bottom fall out.
That's a real concern for me because, Joe, when you talk about buying in the 1960s, and this is by no means an insult, this is just the reality of the situation. Even me growing up in the 80s and 90s, guys, we had television and reading, and that was our entertainment sources. Now, you could play in our Atari or Nintendo, but they weren't as immersive as the video games now are, and you got tired of it. So my sources of entertainment were to go hunting, sports, television, or reading. And if it was a rainy day, I couldn't play sports. You get sick, and I really didn't want to be out in the woods, during rain. And you know what? You get tired of television after a while, so you go to reading. Nowadays, kids, I mean, we're on our phones right now. There's so many little app games on the phones, social media on the phones, or computer something. Video games, I mean, my gosh, you can play with 30 people in one video game. And there's just so many entertainment sources other than comic books. And with the price points being as high, 30 years from now, are we going to have those people looking back like, hey, I really like this story. I like this character when I was younger. Now that I have a little bit of cash because I'm a working person, am I going to get into it? I don't know if that's going to happen going forward.
Well, it just depends on what salaries and stuff are going to be. See what DC Patrol says. He thinks that they're pricing themselves out. But we're looking at this or thinking about this today. So if you're making $15 an hour, just think about that. DC, although they add a few more pages, fine, but it's $5.99 for a lot of their books.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making $15 an hour, you work for an hour, you can only buy 2 books and have a little bit of money left over. But is that what you're going to spend your money on? And in the future, are you going to be making $30 an hour? But then our book's going to be $9.99. I mean,
yes.
that's the issue. It seems that the prices are moving up a lot faster, then potentially people, or young people at least, would have discretionary spending for it. So I think that could be a problem as well.
Yeah.
I definitely, when Matt was talking about inflation early on, Stephanie had mentioned that when we talked about the topic. And Wayne, you said a new comic book is $4.99. That's a lot. When I was a kid and I saw Tim Burton's Batman, I cut grass, I took all my allowance, and I spent every dime I had on comic books that I could scrounge. And I got a job when I was a teenager, and I had a comic book collection, and I went to movies, and I embraced the things that I cared about. And I don't think that anything has changed. I think comic books are more expensive. Like, to buy a brand new comic book, is $4.99 too much? Probably. But they're going to find a way. They're going to, if they love the movies, if they love the shows, at the core of it, it's fun, and it is exciting to be in the hobby. And I just believe that the people from the 90s who now have a full-time job and can buy bigger books are going to help the hobby along the way and carry the load for the next 15, 20 years. And I think that we don't see it as much, or they're not hanging out with us on Instagram or watching our live feed right second, but they're there. They're into art. They're into whatever they're into, and it's going to pull us forward. And that's my happy thoughts for the night.
I know you're too positive. You're too positive, Mr. Blaster. But I got a positive thing for you. Because, guys, whenever I do something, I do some research and some reading. So I read a lot of articles about this. And here's one thing that I read that I think is accurate, at least based in my limited experience. And maybe you guys have a different approach to this. But right now, it seems that most of the big buys, and maybe the little buys as well, are coming from English-speaking countries. Okay? So, you have England, I guess Australia, some, you have US. But there's a whole big world out there.
Don't forget Canada.
Canada, right. That's the other one. I forgot about that.
I know, right?
I'm joking with you, Wayne, but how about if it expands to other countries, like, China, for example, or India. I'm sure there are some collectors there, but it's not the same as it is here, or, Canada, England, or even Australia. I mean, I have some people I speak to in Australia about this stuff. So if that comes into play, whether it's through the movies or anything like that, wouldn't that be kind of the influx that you might need if you don't have the younger kids coming in?
Ooh, Asia brings a lot of customers into the market. Now, would they be necessarily, readers, or would they be speculators? And I don't know that, because they obviously can't read it. But guys, I love to read books, but I'd love to buy the slab books too. I mean, if I'm trying to maximize value, I want the book slab. So does that make me a non-reader, non-purist? I don't know. So, they do have books translated into pretty much every language in the world. That's an interesting topic, Joe. That's a lot of customers.
But Matt,
about.
Matt, like Spider-Man #1 is not going to be translated now. If you get the translation, it's going to be a new issue. I'm talking about looking at the books that
I'm
might
talking
have
about
that
buying the originals.
Yeah.
Buying them up. Even if you're from China and English is not your first language, but you're still buying the original 1963 Amazing Spider-Man #1. That would absolutely drive prices up. Just throwing that many more customers into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just drawing more variables into this whole market analysis.
No, I really like that, because I know a couple months ago, I think Disney Plus released this documentary about Stan Lee and how he was trying to enter the Japanese market. But it was very hard for him to do so because they're already flush with like manga and their type of comic books themselves. So there has to be some sort of, I guess you have to read it and like it. And oh, yes, love the cap, love the cap. But I think even here, you see so many different new characters and different storylines. I feel like a lot of the publishers are just throwing everything at the wall. Oh, there you go. You have some manga. Throwing everything at the wall.
And you read it in its original language, Matt. That's really impressive.
It's amazing.
I can speak a little Japanese, but I cannot read a lick of it. But I was in Japan and I stopped at a convenience store and I'm like, I'm picking up some manga. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I think to bring up your 2 points, Joe, I'm sorry, I am one of those kids. I talked to my friend Johnny about why do we collect comic books today? Who were we collecting for? And we were collecting for our younger selves and the books that we couldn't get as we were kids, right? So that's part one. But part two, I think, is you did have me pegged. And I try to introduce my nieces and nephews to these things, but some of them gravitate towards other things than comic books. And I see exactly what you're bringing up, Joe. So if these publishers kind of come out with new and different characters, and we see a lot of that happening, I feel like some of them will stick, but not all of them. So there has to be that niche that people get into.
Yeah. So
this is definitely a fascinating topic.
I'm sorry.
It is.
Have we exhausted this, or Steve?
Real quick, we have 4 children, and we buy Lego sets that are a Batman set. We buy Lego sets that are a Spider-Man set. We buy hats, shirts, hoodies. It's never ending. So the culture has embraced the DC and Marvel and the comic book world, and
it's all great until it becomes uncool.
Well,
and then everyone's in trouble.
Well, it's not uncool right this second.
I know.
Okay, so I just see it. All the kids have a short box in their closet. One likes the Flash, one likes Batman, and I'm not trying to make them read comic books, but they love it and they're gravitating towards it. It's on the television. It's on the big screen. I think back to the first bootleg Punisher boot that I saw, and where we've come from that, and we're in a good place now. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it.
You have a great point. A lot of 90s people that love Wolverine weren't necessarily comic book readers in the 90s. They just liked the animated show on Saturday mornings, and they just grew up loving that. Alan, I think you're one of those kids, aren't you?
Yep, that is me.
That's your introduction. So you hit on a lot of good points. You don't necessarily have to be reading comic books today as a child to appreciate them in the future.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
Well,
I'm backing you up. I got you 6, bro.
I don't know if
I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that we're going to have a generation of kids who are going to grow up who are only going to know the characters from other media, and that these media will cause these characters to grow beyond their original source material of comics. And then you're going to find that the kids may not necessarily want to read the comics. They're content watching shows or waiting for the next cartoon or buying a statue, or, that for them, it's a visual media, these characters. It's not a written media, and they'll be content with what's being put out now and not go back to read the books or not want to read new books that are being published. And, it's like in school, like you get a book to read for a book report. It's like, no, I'll watch the movie. Thanks. Same thing with comics. That's a little concern. I hope it doesn't happen, but it's a little concern for me.
But
that's been going on for a long time, because you can go back into the 1940s Batman, or the George Reeves Superman, or the Adam West Batman. That was a lot of people's first introduction to the characters, and I have a feeling that that's been going on for a long time.
But I think it's more dominant now, the other media, than back then. I mean, comics were still the dominant vehicle to read Superman or read Batman or
Right.
whatever. Now, I don't think it's. I might be wrong, but I feel like it's not the dominant media.
No,
Like,
movies are.
I kind of agree with you, Wayne. I think right now I even see it affecting myself, you know, because I try to watch each one of the DC or Marvel shows that come out. I'll see the movies eventually, either in the theater, you know, because theaters just opened up again, basically, or I'll watch it on the streaming service. And in some ways, I mean, even looking at the Flash TV show, it's in its eighth, I think it started its 8th season. And the showrunner looks at he looks at the season as graphic novels. So he comes out and he says, we're going to have 3 graphic novels this year. The first one's called Armageddon, and it's going to be the first 5 episodes. And you're going to have guest appearances by, you know, Ray Palmer, the Atom, blah, 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 whatever, Batwoman, that type of thing. So he's looking at them as if they are graphic novels, right? Like 5-issue graphic novels. And a lot of the others will do something similar. When they had Crisis on Infinite Earths as part of the crossover a couple of years ago, they did a really good job with that. It didn't follow the book, though, at least not exactly. The theme was the same, but they had to. But the Arrow was his last season, and they kind of played him up. He was the one, instead of like the Spectre fight. You know, he became, you know, effectively like the Spectre and did all the stuff that was done differently. So the book, people might have gone out and buy the book, but if they did, it wasn't what they saw on television.
Yep.
So I don't know if what that means in terms of buying, but I think people could get disillusioned over it. But I do think that there's a lot of positives too. I mean, even though the prices are high, the sales have been terrific of new comic books too. You know, so if you hold on, you guys are young, you know, hold on to them for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Look, my comics that I bought in the 60s, so what is it, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like over 50 years ago, right? And so now some of them are worth a few bucks. But you will keep yours in pristine condition. So I think you guys will be good.
Oh,
We won't be throwing them to our neighbors on the steps.
No. Making paper airplanes out of the ones you don't like, you know, that type of thing.
I want to know, Joe, what would you have done with that 10 cents or 15 cents back in the 60s if you didn't buy a comic book?
I was going to buy baseball cards, which I bought anyway. I mean, it was a nickel. I wish I still had the baseball cards. Those I don't have. You know, so they were a nickel for a pack. Went to Molly's candy store, block away. Molly had them underneath glass there. You'd say, Molly, here's a nickel. Give me a pack of cards. You'd get the check off list. You'd want to make sure that you check off the ones you want, the different series. You know, Mickey Mantle was my favorite. So I always tried to get a Mickey Mantle card. I had a few of them. I wish I still did.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Holy cow.
So, I mean, I still bought them. But it was those, I think it was Doug Bratton that said that he split his money between comic books and baseball cards. And that's kind of what I did.
Doug Bratton. All right, time out. I have a question for Joe. Joe,
Me?
what comic book that you know that you owned back then that is a key that you do not own right now that you traded with a friend?
Well, I wish I knew the answer to that question, Steve. I don't know.
I've asked Joe this exact question before.
Yeah, I really don't know. In some ways, it's a blessing.
Yes.
Yes. But, you know, even was a young Matthew asked me if I ever owned Amazing Fantasy 15, and I knew the answer to that question, and the answer was no, because I remember when I bought my first ASM. Not the specific time, but I remember the issue, and because I went hunting for earlier ones, so I remember that kind of generally. But I don't remember which ones I threw out. You know, I'm sure there were some that were keys, and there's probably some that are worth some money today, but I have no clue what they were. I'm happy about that.
All right.
Anything else on this topic, guys?
Yeah, I need to win a Powerball.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. We've had some good comments on this. I've been putting them up as we see them. Yeah, I got to watch the new Beatles documentary too. I told my wife about it, so we'll start watching it tomorrow. You know,
Nice.
Because because that's kind of my thing too. The Beatles.
I saw in the comments. I saw in the comments a few people mentioned going after old Daredevil, and I
Yeah.
couldn't agree
Yes.
more. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think Rob brought it up. He says because he's been trying to collect the under 100 Spider-Man as well, not signed by Stan Lee, but he just mentioned that they're getting too expensive. He might switch to Daredevil because it's much more affordable.
Yeah.
Only a person certifiably insane will be trying to collect sub.
Wait a minute. Wait a
signed
minute. Wait a minute.
ASM books.
I got to show this.
Nice.
All right, Matt, you can continue now.
I'm just saying somebody who needs to see a therapist is going to be collecting sub 100 signed ASM books. But look at that display case back there. That is
Look, Stephanie has got to be a saint to
absolutely
put up with this.
Right, it's right here.
She got me number 5, everybody. She
yeah.
brought-
Either a saint or you're just drinking a little bit more now, Steph. That's it.
Say my name. Matt. Say my name.
I did notice that yellow above her head, so it's both
Absolutely.
the labels and the ring.
We're getting a request, Matt.
Uh-oh. It's on the wall up there. I'd have to
Oh,
get
it's on the
it
wall.
out.
Okay.
Eh, I'll work on it.
Any of you tempted to sell any of your books due to the amount of money that people are willing to pay? I think
That's a
Wayne,
good question.
you are.
Well, that's a good question since Danielle's my friend. Yeah, it depends on the book. Depends on what they're willing to pay. Sure, I mean I sell books anyway, so I mean but there's some books in my PC I don't ever want to sell unless I get a better copy and then I trade up. But
There it is.
there we go.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Let me. I got this thing in the way, so I can't do this right. Here we go.
Oh,
Oh,
Big Joe.
wrong one. Hold on.
Big Joe, small Matt.
Yeah, I have to move Matt over one more. Okay, we got it.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you
Big
go.
flex.
Pretty fly.
Nice.
That was one of your goals this year, wasn't it?
What's that?
Wasn't that one of your goals this year to pick that up?
That was one of my 5 goals for this year. Yes.
Now, Rob upstages you by says he has a few of them.
He has a few of them. Hey, I was
Anybody
happy
else?
just to get one low grade copy. Like I'm happy.
All right, cool.
Anyone else willing to unload stuff? If somebody came to you and said, "I will give you, 150% fair market value for a book,"
Oof.
Ash, would you sell?
Yes.
Depending on the book.
I think I have a lot of mine that at some point in time I would be willing to do. At this point now, I'm looking at more of my modern ones and saying, how can I maybe a mystery box or something and packaging a bunch and maybe throwing in some of my old ones in the package and getting rid of them that way. But the ones that I had as a kid, there might be some I would give away, but some I wouldn't right now. I just wouldn't do it. It's too sentimental for me at this point in time.
I'm kind of the same way. I think since my collection hasn't grown too great yet, I think I have a list of about 10 books that probably would not touch those. But I think the rest, if it made sense, then I would really think about it. But I'm kind of I'm trying to play the long game right now, so I think I'm sitting on a lot of the things that I buy because I buy what I love, right? So
little correction about Rob. He wasn't talking about Daredevil 1. He was talking about selling books that were ridiculously high.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's I think if somebody comes to you with an offer, you got to think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm with Alan right now that I'm still growing. I have time. I do look, Joe, you're my mentor, and I'm constantly thinking about you and where you are in your journey, and that I'll be there. But right now, I'm still expanding. I'm with Alan.
well, I'm going to have, like some of us, I'm going to have a goals show, I think. I'm going to put together towards the end of the year. And I've really been thinking about what my 2022 goals will be. And it may surprise some of you guys, I think. I'm kind of going in a interesting direction in my head. I'm not quite decided on it yet, but I have to talk to my family a little bit about it too, see how it works out.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, though, that Matt Woods has dibs on all of my Spider-Man comic books. He already has paid me. No, I mean, he already has.
Oh,
I actually asked the guy, I said, which ones do you need? I said, I'm going to see my lawyer. We're putting together an estate plan. Which Spider-Man ones do you need? I will leave them to you. And he said, no. He said he wanted to pay for them. So, we got through the lawyer thing, and there's no Matt Woods in the will. Sorry.
That lawyer was tough, let me tell you.
So Steve, just whenever you're looking at your collection, you're thinking about your collecting goals and what you want to do and decisions you want to make, you think WWJD?
WWJD.
What would Joe
Well, normally it's what would Jesus do, but it's what would Joe do? WWJD? Sorry, the joke didn't work. Never mind.
Wayne, I think about Joe all the time, frankly, and his wife isn't jealous. But I do think about Joe. I mean, it's like Stephanie, boxes are coming in and she's on board. And but at the end of the day, I'm going to be Joe one day.
If you're lucky.
And I will be a lucky man.
Once fired.
Will put me in the basement one day, Joe. I know that will happen. But no, it's great. I love Joe so much for sharing everything about his journey from start to where he is right this second. And I am, and he's got the channel. But this is what we're doing. We're talking about, like, should we sell books on the high? Should we hold them? And I'm thinking about Joe along the way. Joe had all these books and he held on to them. If he would have sold them in the 90s, would he be in a worse place now or a better place now? So I definitely do. And that was hilarious, Wayne. So I love it. Joe, thanks for, I'm going to just get all warm and fuzzy. Thanks for having me on this. This is amazing. You guys are awesome. And it's important to talk about these topics, right? We don't know the answer to this question. We don't know the answer.
No,
but
you don't
have
know.
a feeling, right? And you had a feeling all along the way, and we're just going to roll with that feeling.
Right.
All
So
right.
I'll tell you what, unless anybody has anything else to say, I think we've talked this to the end and have no conclusion for everybody that's watching. So sorry, guys.
I was going to
But let
say,
me
we
ask
could
you-
talk
let me-
about this all day and we would still not come to a conclusion.
Right. We're at the hour mark probably. So let's go to a second, perhaps quicker question that's not as esoteric and we don't have to think about it so much. So, we collect comics, right? And comic related things. Pretty Fly wants my Batman cards that I had on the first show, right? Though I think if I leave them to anybody, I might leave them to Wayne, and Wayne knows why. Anyway, but here's something. Not comics, not comic related. What's your guilty, well, not comics or not a comic related thing, but what's your guilty pleasure? It could be comics related, but not, not a comic book or, something like, not a grail. Let's put it that way. Not a grail. So what's your guilty pleasure outside of that? What do you think? Anybody? I'd go to Steve, but I'm afraid to. So, but however, Steve, if you want to start off, you can. Whoever wants to.
Okay, well, this is a great question, and it is a comic book because I have very delineated goal. I have a very clear goal. So everything outside of that goal is not. I'm on my goal. It's a 5-year goal. All right. So I mentioned earlier my children, and my son Mason loves the Ghost Rider. And I went to local comic book shop and I ended up getting Marvel Spotlight #6, the second appearance of Ghost Rider. He loves the Ghost Rider. And I got, behind me is an action figure of the Ghost Rider. And when this topic came up, and everybody on the video screen right now knows that I went to the local comic book shop and I picked up a non-goal comic book for my son. So I'm going to show it off, and this is what I'm bringing to the conversation, and it's a big deal, and it's a grill for a lot of people, and it's an amazing comic book, and I'm super proud to own it. But it's for my son, Marvel Spotlight #5. The first appearance of the Ghost Rider.
Nice.
Or my accidentally
That's awesome.
at the local comic book shop today, randomly, and I traded Hulk 180 6.0 for this comic book for my son, and he's super excited. But before, so I point that out because I think that we can have a goal and have multiple SKUs. We can have our eyes out on what we're doing, and that's what makes it fun. So everyone knows that before I started hunting the Stanley 1 through 100, the first run I ever put together was Todd McFarlane Spider-Man comic books. I'm a big Todd McFarlane fan. And I can show off some of the books from the run. They're all signed by Stan Lee, okay? But what I want to put together is the Hulk run from Todd McFarlane. The art in that run is fantastic. I'm just showing off the other run. So that is a guilty pleasure. I've got some Raw books. I've got 330. I've got a bunch of those books. But I'm a huge Todd McFarlane fan. And then I'm going to mention one last side goal that I have. It is James O'Barr the Crow. Okay? I have some wicked art from James O'Barr.
Amazing.
This is from that 1991. And then I have an actual original page from that. This is from The Crow with all the bad guys here. And then I have a Caliber #1 signed by James O'Barr that I'm going to send in. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
Nice.
great. And the point is, it's like everything we're talking about, like what's going to drive this and that, it's the things that drive you. And so Tom McFarlane Hulk run, whatever makes my kids happy, whatever makes Madam Blaster happy, and anything Tom McFarlane from the 90s, I'm in. So that's my deal.
Can't go wrong with McFarlane.
Cannot go wrong.
So can I ask, the Hulk McFarlane's just to have them, or you specifically want signed ones, like yellow labels?
I don't know what happened to me, Wayne, where I got enticed with the yellow label. So I would like to go yellow label.
With Stanley, or just Todd
No.
McFarlane?
Just and I want Todd McFarlane's signature, and I would prefer the full Todd, not just the T and the dot. If you know what I'm saying, the full Todd. But yeah, I would like the Hulk run all signed by Todd McFarlane. I'm not that going after Stanley's signature on all those books. It's probably not even a thing. I'm thinking. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pretty Fly's question about the Crow.
Oh, because of the Brandon Lee movie? No, that's a good. I like the Brandon Lee movie. I totally love that. James O'Barr was in the military, and everyone knows Matt Woods and I are in the military, and he did illustrations for military manuals before he had his girlfriend die in a car accident. I don't want to mess that up, but I have a connection with him because of the military connection and because the Crow story is very profound to me. So
Okay.
that's the reason why I'm very interested and connected to that.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Steve. Very good.
It's awesome.
Anybody else?
Well, I have something, and it's very much comic related, but it's not necessarily a true comic book. I have the pleasure, I work in a school, okay? Now, the Marvel signed a contract with Scholastic to put Miles Morales in schools. Now, what it is whenever they have the book fairs every year, there's always a Miles Morales book. And every time there's a book fair in my school, I always buy one of these Miles Morales books on purpose. And I don't know, because we talked about people 30 years later wanting to get some of their childhood back. And I imagine there's a kid in school today that 20, 25, 30 years from now, they're going to want to come back and read a book like this. So this is a complete, I'm not going to lie, it's a complete spec buy. But I've been buying every time I see a Miles Morales Scholastic book.
Wow.
And without a doubt, it is a comic book. You know, I guess they call it graphic novel, makes it sound a little bit different. But so that's one of the things that I'm, just kind of, guilty pleasure. I'm kind of happy that I'm getting a collection of these.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah, I think for me, some of the guilty pleasures, of course, like are comic book related. But yeah, from the 90s, I was one of the guys that collected those 91, 92 Marvel and DC cards. So that's been kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. But I've also started to like appreciate more of, and thank you, Madam and Master Blaster, for getting me into the art side of things, because kind of not necessarily just original art pieces, but what I'd like to do is, if I could get commissions from some of these guys, that would be on a different scale, right? If it's like a one of a kind type of thing, just because I could look at it and be like, all right, this is something that no one seen in a book. My eyes have seen it. Maybe if it's posted on social media, yeah, but that would be a guilty pleasure of mine too. Not saying that I do it now, but I will, pursue this.
I have one more I forgot to talk about. There was this YouTube guy, I haven't seen him for a while. It was Hawkeye 452. Okay? I don't know where that guy ever got off to, but he climbed this mountain in Peru. And he posed with this comic book, this Amazing Spider-Man 110. And I just thought that guy was as cool as could be, because he actually climbed a mountain with a comic book, in his backpack somehow. I thought that was cool dedication for the Given Gang. So my little guilty pleasure, and if I could ever talk to that Hawkeye 452 and ask what went through his head, but I have been taking that comic book all over the world now and posing with it in different places. And I have to just tip my hat off to that man, because that's 1,000% because he had that great idea. So that's just taking the comic hobby all over the place.
Nice.
Do any of you guys know him?
I've heard of him. Sounded like a cool guy.
Coolest guy I've ever known.
Thank you.
For any of you guys that don't know, Hawkeye 452 was Alan Climate Comics' old YouTube name.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my original YouTube name, because so I was named after Alan Alda from MASH, whose nickname in the show was Hawkeye.
Right.
Didn't know
I didn't know where the name came from.
Yeah, my mom was a huge MASH fan.
It's
Yeah.
a great show.
Me too. Fantastic show.
So I guess me. I kind of too comic related non-key series. I like to fill in series that meant something to me as a kid. So I filled in like All-Star Squadron and things that I loved when I was a kid. So I filled those in. But the one I'm trying to fill in now, All-Star Western from the early 70s, where number 10 was the first Jonah Hex, which I have, and I have number 11, the first cover Jonah Hex. But prior to that, there's, they're just, I wouldn't say throwaway. They have like other minor characters like El Diablo that were introduced, but they're not major in any way, shape, or form. And I'm trying to get like very fine to higher grade copies of the entire 11 books, just because I really wanted. I liked Weird Western Tales, so I went and got like a really bad copy of the first appearance of Scalp Hunter. I want to go get a nicer copy. Just little things to fill in things that are kind of niche that I like. But the other thing, and this plays back to nostalgia. I think a topic in the previous topic, nostalgia's come up. Mego figures were something that I played with when I was a kid, because growing up in the 70s, my parents gave me a lot of Mego figures, and I tore them out of the packages, and I played them till they broke. Had a lot of like the Batmobile, the Bat Cycle with sidecar, Spider-Man's mobile, the whole thing. I've been trying to pick up randomly some of the different ones from both the World's Greatest Superheroes and the Mego Star Wars or Star Trek run, and try to fill those in. But I had everything. I had Starsky and Hutch. I had Happy Days. You name it, I had it. I'd love to, and I'm trying to go back and get some of these ones that meant a lot to me, that were my favorite toys as a kid. Man, they're expensive. So generally, I tend not to buy them when I see them at auction, because get a nice one in a box, and you're looking at $400 or $500 sometimes a figure. But I would love to go back and get like a nice run and make a beautiful display of all the Megos that I had as a kid and some of the ones I never saw up in Canada, and get kind of a complete set. So that's kind of a down the road a goal of mine. So
That's
okay.
great.
There you go.
I guess I finished
That's
this
awesome.
up here. There's two things, and the way I kind of approached this question was things that I was kind of, interested in, kind of a guilty pleasure that's always on my mind, but it's not real. I mean, if I never get it, fine. But if I do get it, fine. But there's no time frame on it or anything like that. So the first one has to do with I can't remember the name of the company now. I should really remember it, but just kind of flew out of my mind. But back when I was a kid and we lived in Manhattan, I had the comics in the corner of my room and all that. I had a wardrobe closet, because there were no built-in closets in my bedroom. It was a very small bedroom, probably like 8x7 or something like that, small room. So I had a wardrobe closet, but on top of that wardrobe closet, I had what's the name of the company? Damn. Can't remember now. But I had 3 figures of superheroes. They were kits you put together. It'll pop into my head, I know, but I can't remember the name of it now. So there was
Aurora?
Superman punching through a brick wall. There was Batman swinging on a rope. And I had Spider-Man, who was, if I remember correctly, like just kind of hanging off it on the wall. You put them together, just like the model cars, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You put them together and you painted them.
Was it Aurora?
Yes, probably Aurora. Now that I'm thinking, I think you're right, because they were he also had ads in the old comic books were there for them as well. So I had them. I never painted them really well, but I had them, and I've seen them online. Pretty expensive. Some of them are already made. They might be missing a piece or whatever else. But in the back of my mind, I always said, gee, if I get that comic room, rebuilding the house in Cape Cod in the basement, it would really be cool to kind of get, Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man again, and have them there in whatever shape they might be in. So it's kind of a guilty pleasure, because I don't know how much they would cost or what they would be. And if I don't get them, that's fine, but it's something that I think would be really cool. And that would be like the child of the 60s, Alan, going back and saying, I had those on top of this wardrobe. And
That's
I really
awesome.
wish I had them right next to my Estes rocket, which we shot off in the playground, ended up on the roof of the school, and the guy wouldn't let us in to get it, but anyway, but that was, so that's one thing. The second thing is something else that's always been on my mind, but I really haven't even looked, and I'm not planning on looking anytime soon, but I think I will at some point in time. I've mentioned on some of the live streams or what have you or some of the things that, the Roy Thomas video, Matt, where I spoke to Roy and I said, I entered your contest in Alter Ego to color, altering Captain Ego, what he was like. And I won one of the prizes. It wasn't a grand prize winner, but I won one of the prizes, and the prize was a original artwork. I think it was from Justice League of America #3, and it had Green Lantern. It wasn't a great piece, but it was original. It was Green Lantern and the Flash, with Green Lantern flying around with Flash in a bubble, and then they landed somewhere or something like that. Well, that got lost somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know what happened to it. Right. So I always thought to myself, it would be really cool not to get that piece. I don't know if it was destroyed or somebody stole it or what have you. I have no clue where it is. But to be able to get a page of original artwork, they'll now probably be like thousands of dollars, right? But get a page of original artwork from one of the early Justice League comic books. I think that would be kind of cool to have. So that's kind of my two guilty pleasures of things that, if they happen, fine. If I see them, fine. If they don't, it's just kind of something that I think would be kind of cool to have as a kind of a throwback to my younger days with respect to that. So anyway, those are my two.
It's awesome.
Well, we've been going for how long here now? About an hour and 17 minutes or so. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up?
This is just, I love the format of this show. We get on here and we're all friends, but we just get to talk about the hobby and different things that we experience in this hobby. Oliver Queen, nice.
He is the Green Arrow.
Well, minus the hair.
Nice.
And the man is really tall. You can see the GarageCon photos. The man,
Oh man, gosh.
he's still growing.
How tall are you, Wayne? Like 5'5" or something like that?
6'7".
Amazing. Amazingly tall.
That's
It was fun
crazy.
just standing next to him.
So Matt, what's I saw your GarageCon video, which was really cool. So I decided not to do one because yours was so good I could never manage.
Yeah.
I don't know about
See,
that.
Wayne feels the same way.
I didn't want to copycat because it'd be the same thing, right?
I didn't take any footage at GarageCon, like zero. I just
I thought
talked
we
about
weren't
it.
allowed to until I saw Reggie's channel there. Whatever.
Yeah, but we could have taken video whenever we were out eating dinner.
Yeah.
That was what
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't see. And I have to say, I am super stoked that I'm the only one who has met and spoken to in person all 5 people that are in here, except
That's
for
true.
Madam Blaster, because, well, I got to meet her one of these days.
I don't know about that.
We'll be
Anything special?
worlds will collide. If you meet Matt Woods and you have a drinking game that is Matt Woods, I die.
I feel like we're just missing each other, Steve. I was in Arizona, didn't see you. I was in Nevada. You were there a couple weeks later. Like, I think you're just ghosting me is what's going on.
Shame.
Well, Matt, anything coming up in your channel that you want to talk about? Anything special?
Well, I've been working. I actually filmed one video dealing with how Marvel said that collectors should collect books. I filmed a video back in August. And thank you, Master Blaster and Alan, for the awesome idea. But I lost the video somehow. I was holding off on releasing that because that was when my channel was like in between being deleted and all that good stuff. But I lost the video. So now I need to refilm a video. And then I had a really awesome experience with another comic book collector recently. And I want to film a video on that. So I have a couple videos coming out next week.
Matt has a great channel. I mean, he gets, even if he doesn't put any videos out, he gets thousands of views. It's just amazing.
We all have great channels, let's be honest.
Now, the Madam and Master Blaster, I know you just put a video out, which I didn't get a chance to see because I was at the movies with my son. But do you have anything else planned coming out?
We want to thank you guys for mentioning our channel, and Gary B. That was an amazing initiative that he had.
Yeah.
And we're just having a blast being a part of the community. So, and we love this initiative. It's going to be amazing. So thanks for including us, Joe, and you guys. We love you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Alan,
Right
how
back
about
at
your
you
channel?
guys. Yeah,
got
for
coming up?
me,
Yeah.
like I have a couple things coming up. I recorded a couple things like last month, but I think some things didn't like match on YouTube and whatnot, so they should be coming out next week. But I'll also be doing like a recap of this past year
Right.
and more so of a plan for next year. So that should be coming out over the next couple weeks to month.
Wayne, you got anything planned?
I actually recorded a video. I haven't posted it yet, just on some recent auction wins. Local to me, in very local to me, actually, within like a very short driving distance. I picked up a lot of stuff, and I'm prepping another batch to go to CGC. So I want to show off what I want to be sending to CGC and stack. I'm not kidding. It's like that. It's crazy.
Cool.
And I'm started scripting a video to talk about 2022, what 2022 is going to look like for me, and some of my collecting goals, and what I hope to get out of the year. Not necessarily resolutions. I don't believe in resolutions, but fervent wishes.
Well,
Nice.
for me, I have the Monday show, which people seem to like. I guess, though it's causing some people are complaining to me because they say that when they see it, they end up buying more comic books than they would otherwise buy.
Spending our money, Joe.
Yeah, I know. That's it. But I actually, people have been asking about Bruno.
Oh,
So Bruno's actually going to make an appearance on the channel soon, but he is going to make a guest appearance very soon. I think on December 4th on another channel. So you may want to take a look for him on another channel.
Nice.
A specific request, So that was kind of interesting. But I'm lining up also some more episodes of the comics my mom let me keep. I'm hoping to put one out at least every month with respect to that. I have a couple of espresso mail calls that have been videotaped already. One of them, Gary B was not on tonight here, and one of them is Gary B's fault. So I'm wondering how to put together the thumbnail to show that it was Gary B's fault that I actually bought the comics. So I'm not, I don't only influence other people; other people influence me as well. But as you guys know, come January, I'm going to go down to Florida. I can't bring my comic books with me. So I'm probably going to try to record a number of videos while I'm down in my basement. So I might be sunning myself in Florida at 80 degrees, but it's going to be down in my basement at 62 degrees. You're going to see the videos that are there, at least some of them. So you'll see me in Florida for the Monday video probably, and you're going to see me down in the basement for some of the others.
Nice.
But so those are kind of some of the stuff that I've been trying to take a look at, and I did take Reggie's. When I was up in Reggie's room there, he had mentioned that he has a whiteboard and all that. And I have one too, but I had it off on the side. So now I put it on the refrigerator that's near my table in the basement. And so actually I like that a lot good because I have all these ideas and I write them down, but now I have them on this whiteboard and I just write down like, this month I'm going to do these, this month I'm going to do these and that type of thing. And I find it to be really helpful. So those are the type of things that I have kind of I've been working on. Oh, one other thing too is I wasn't going to do this, but if you remember, I had that video on the Ditko lawsuit, and I spoke about copyrights. Well, part 2 was supposed to be the copyright law versus the contracts rather than the first one. And I just didn't do it because I wasn't sure that people were really interested in it, but I've had like 3, 4, 5 people asking me about it. So I probably will shoot it out, for those people that want to see it. I don't know how many people are going to look at it, but I will probably try to shoot that out in the next week or two. You're one of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, some people ask me. So I'm just trying to do it. It's a little complicated. So I've been going over trying to figure out how to just explain that in a way that just kind of makes general sense so people understand what's going on. So that's going to come out probably next week or two.
Ooh, excited.
All right, so this is our second show.
Yeah.
I feel really good because I
Yes.
was drinking during it. Which I might do this again. Now I know why the blasters do it.
Woods. Matt Woods.
Matt Woods.
Matt Woods. So guess we can all say good night. Matt, we start with you.
Hey, again, this is a great discussion. I just love this get together, with some awesome members of the community, awesome members of the chat. This was the best chat going. So really enjoyed this experience. Looking forward to the next one.
Blasters?
What? This was just a joy. It was great to be here.
We love you all and love what you own.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm just so glad that I got to talk. So I talked to all of you guys like on like Instagram, but it's such a different dynamic when we do it in person like this, or not in person, but through video. And it's really fun just to have conversations like this because I only have a couple of friends who I talk to about these specific topics, and I have so much to talk about. So appreciate that, and definitely make this hobby your own. Thanks all.
I just want to say thanks for letting me be part of this group. It's really awesome to connect with all of you, and I consider you all really good friends. And I can't wait to meet the rest of you I haven't seen, Alan and the Blasters, face to face someday,
Yep.
one day soon. But yeah, sort of parroting a bit of what Alan said. The people in my life don't do comics, so I bore them totally. I talk about comics and their eyes glaze over. So Danielle is for one. So it's great to just have an opportunity to talk. Just even though we're on, it's still casual. It's fun. It's just we just be ourselves and talk about something we love. So I just love it, and thank you so much, all of you.
Yeah, I think this was a great idea. I wonder whose idea this was.
The wisest amongst us.
Right.
Yes.
I'm always thinking, which is part of my problem. That's what my wife says. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody that showed up. We still got about 10 people here. I think we were
Wow.
close to 20
Nice.
at some point. So I really
Awesome.
appreciate everybody stopping by. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't and you really enjoyed it. And I don't see why you didn't. Come on. And what I say at the end of all my videos, I'll say it now. Just be well, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.